And I'm joined now by Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. She's from Washington State, and she is on both the House Budget and the Judiciary Committees. Congresswoman, we really appreciate you being with us today.
It's great to be with you, Brianna.
When the stocks fell yesterday, you tweeted something. You said, "Why is the stock market crashing? Hashtag GOP tax scam creates enormous deficits paid for by working Americans." Then GOP-controlled House and Senate do absolutely nothing to raise debt ceiling and pass a real budget. All this could lead to catastrophic default. So you ascribe this volatility. Can you explain to us entirely to the actions of the president and congressional Republicans?
Well,
I
think it's an enormous part, and it's true that there's volatility in the stock market, but investors are not stupid. They look at an economy and they look at the things that are coming up and they make their assessments about where the economy is going to go. And when you see that we're about to go into our 5th continuing resolution and we have no plans around how to raise the debt limit because Republicans who control the House, the Senate, and the White House have refused to talk to Democrats about how to get the votes that they need to raise the debt ceiling and to make sure that we're passing a permanent budget. Investors look at that and they say, wait a second, this is crazy, on top of the fact that we've just increased the deficit substantially, and now we're going to have these increased interest payments. And so they're looking at all of that and saying, whoa, 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 this is not a market that we want to take a chance on, and that's why you're seeing these enormous drops. Is it entirely...
What if this stabilizes and then you have the president able to point to good jobs numbers, a bump in wage growth? I mean, then by that logic, doesn't he also get credit for that?
Well, the president hasn't been able to point to that. He's been using isolated instances of companies, giving a bonus or increasing jobs. But for every one of those instances, there are other instances of, other companies like Kimberly-Clark cutting jobs. There are other instances of companies taking all of those tax cuts and rolling them back into shareholder profit or saving that money, which is one of the things we knew might happen. So we're not seeing the kind of evidence for any kind of a boost to the economy. And if we did, I'll tell you, Brianna, it would be very short term because once again, we haven't resolved these longer term issues. And I worked in banking and ran my own nonprofit organization, kind of like a small business for years. And we are constantly having to evaluate. That's what the stock market is. It's an assessment of whether or not there's a stable economy. This president is so outrageous on so many fronts and makes claims that he has no backing for, and then increases the deficit to a point where, I think people have forgotten that Republicans used to be seen as the fiscal conservatives. They're certainly not anymore.
I want to get to what the president said yesterday and have you react to this.
You're up there. You've got half the room going totally crazy, wild. They loved everything. They want to do something great for our country. And you have the other side, even on positive news, really positive news like that, they were like death and un-American. Un-American. Somebody said treasonous. I mean, yeah, I guess why not? Can we call that treason? Why not? I mean, they certainly didn't seem to love our country very much.
I have a couple questions about this. The first one, which we'll dispense with, is his talking about treason, is Sarah Sanders saying that was clearly a joke. Will you just react to what you heard?
I think it is so disturbing that we have a president who would use that word in a campaign context to really, diminish what treason really is. I mean, this is a president who is increasingly looking very desperate. The Nunes memo was a big flop. The only thing that showed to me was that this president is terrified of what the Mueller investigation is actually going to reveal. To talk about individuals sitting in a chamber reacting to false claims and things that the president is saying offensive and not rising, to call that treasonous is pretty, I don't even have the words to describe how beneath the office of the president that is.
To his other point, which I want to ask you about as well, he's saying that essentially, if you extrapolate from what he said, Democrats could be in the place where they're looking like they're cheering against good news, right? Good economic news. Is that a problem for you if Democrats look like they're cheering against something that could be good because it favors Republicans politically?
The problem is the president claiming credit for a long-term trend. I think he might have been actually referring to his comments around African American employment numbers unemployment numbers going down, when in fact we just saw that in the first year, for the first time, we are actually seeing those numbers go up. He's taking credit for something that President Obama put a lot of time and energy into. So I'm not worried about us looking bad. I'm worried about what he's using the office to do and the ways in which he continues to perpetuate claims that have no basis in reality.